Does the TCU coaching staff have somebody on the offensive side of the ball that can help with preparation for KJ Jefferson this week? We'll talk about that and more next here on Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day.
You are Locked On Horned Frogs, your daily podcast on the TCU Horned Frogs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked On Horned Frogs, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Also subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. Hello to UCF fans. I saw that a couple days ago you guys found my video, which is awesome. Welcome to this week. I think it's going to be a fun ball game. Two really talented football teams. One interesting subplot to this game is Kendal Briles was KJ Jefferson's OC at Arkansas for a few years, and then he took the job at TCU a couple of off seasons ago. KJ spent one more year at Arkansas before hitting the transfer portal and landing with Gus Malzahn at UCF. So, how much can Kendal help with game planning for KJ Jefferson? Obviously, he knows KJ really well, knows his strengths and weaknesses. I mean, Sonny had an interesting quote about this. I believe it was Jeremy Clark who asked the question about Briles' familiarity with KJ and how it could help TCU this week. And he said it helps both of them. Obviously, KJ knows Kendal's stuff from a scheme standpoint, and Kendal knows KJ's ability from a playing standpoint. There's always that trade-off. In some ways, it's a sub-zero trade. So he makes a good point about, like Kendal obviously knows KJ's playing style and what he can do and his abilities really well, but at the same time, KJ knows the scheme. And he also mentioned that KJ should have a pretty good idea of what TCU signals are going to be, so they're going to have to work this week on changing that and making sure that they're hiding that to a certain extent. So it's intriguing. I would say this about that question specifically. I feel like Kendal will give Andy Avalos some insight. I don't really know how much it's going to affect the ball game. Here's the thing to me. This is the week where Dana Holgorsen hopefully starts to earn his money. Sonny Dykes in the offseason brought in Dana Holgorsen and Todd Graham as analysts. Everybody was just kind of assuming like, oh, Dana will work with the offense, Todd will work with the defense because that's their backgrounds. But Sonny flipped that, and he actually wanted Dana to work with the defense. And what Dana's supposed to be doing throughout the season is advanced scouting for different offenses. What Gus Malzahn is doing at UCF and what he's done through his career, honestly, is really innovative, and they're just very complicated in the run game. My friend Matt Jennings mentioned it yesterday. He said people traditionally, when they think about like the power run game, which you got a big quarterback, you got multiple running backs who can really go, they got a stacked running back room. You think about just running the ball downhill, not a lot of window dressing, not a lot of extra stuff. But, I mean, watching them through the first two games this year, this is a pretty complicated run scheme that they're using. I mean, they'll motion the receiver in like kind of a jet sweep look and then fake that ball to him, hand it off on the inside draw. They'll get to the perimeter on a lot of that speed sweep stuff. They have a ton of speed, a lot of different guys who can do it. RJ Harvey right now is averaging almost 9 yards a carry. Penny Boone has 135 yards. KJ has been effective running the football as well. You know, like watching those first two games, a lot of that's off schedule stuff, which is what he's been good at, but they can also use him in the designed running game. And that affects your numbers because you have to match up, you have to account for the quarterback as well running the football. And so it makes it tougher for your defense. I will say this, and I'll say this for both teams. I think we can both fairly assume that the schedule's been pretty light so far. Now, TCU went on the road and played Stanford. I think that means something. Even though Stanford's not supposed to be very good, that's still a Power 4 team. And offensively and defensively, I thought they looked solid. UCF is feasted on New Hampshire and Sam Houston State. And yeah, Sam Houston State's technically FBS now. They moved up to the WAC. But still, like, this is going to be a huge test for both teams. It's going to be a big test for the TCU defense. And all the work they've done this offseason, when Andy Avalos was talking about, listen, it's tackle football. We have to get guys to the ground. We have to be able to tackle in space. That's going to be hugely important in this ball game. And also, like, they've got speed all over the place. So you have to run those guys down sideline to sideline, string that play out as far as you can, and hopefully get, reinforcements from the back end of your defense to come up and make those tackles. Johnny Hodges, it's a big week for him at that linebacker spot. Caleb Alarmzor, Namdio Bizor, those physical inside linebackers. But then honestly, or also, I guess I should say, your interior defensive line, huge test for them as well. Timon Mitchell, Kayla Fox, Paula Lawale, supposedly going to be back this week. So that's huge. And Sonny Dyke said he practiced yesterday. He should be available for this upcoming ball game. From a pass rushing perspective, that's a big deal. But also staying fresh in the run game and stopping what UCF wants to do, because this is a big offensive line. Like, you look across what they have and you see guys, Marcellus Marshall, 6'5", 310 pounds. Caden Kittler, 6'3", 295 pounds. They got an Alabama transfer whose name escapes me right now, but I think he's 6'7" and like 320. They've got dudes at every position from left tackle to right tackle that are big and physical and also look athletic, because they'll get them out in the screen game, and they do a lot of stuff on the perimeter, on the outside. So it's imperative that you get out there and make tackles. TCU's gonna be set up in a lot of one-on-one matchups in the open field with these skill players, and they're gonna have to find a way to get them to the ground and limit big plays, limit yards after the catch, and then obviously what they do in the run game. And yeah, I mean, KJ Jefferson is an experienced quarterback. He can throw the football, but I feel like you have to force him to do it. UCF has options on the outside. They got guys that can catch the ball, of course. But this is a week where you got to force them to beat you that way. Like, you can't just let them line up and run the ball at will like they have through the first couple of weeks of the season. And this will be a huge game as well. Kobe Hudson is their leading receiver right now with 165 yards. Big game for JT Broughton, the transfer from Utah, 4-year starter at corner for Kyle Whittingham, Lamarian James. Both those corners for TCU have been really good so far this season in man-to-man coverage. And they're going to have to step up this week to allow Andy to bring people from different angles, allocate for that run game, and find ways to try to put UCF in obvious passing downs if you can, so they're not just living in second and manageable, third and manageable, where they have that whole playbook open to them and they can stay on the ground and run the ball as much as possible. I also wonder what KJ Jefferson's mentality is going into this week, because people linked TCU to his recruitment when he hit the portal, but it seemed pretty lazy. I remember On3 mentioned TCU as a possible destination, like as soon as he became available. But what that was just, hey, he used to play for Kendal Briles. It would make sense for them to reunite at a Big 12 school. And that was about the extent of it. From everything we could tell and all the reporting that was done, it didn't seem like there was actually much smoke there or much mutual interest. So I don't know if he's got a chip on his shoulder about that. We'll see. I think it was pretty obvious early in the offseason that TCU was committed to Josh Hoover, that they decided, you know what, we're going to build this offense around him. We like what he showed at the end of the year. We're going to allow him to be the starter for the entire season to get a good look at what he can do. And we're going to try to, fill in the gaps on this roster, enhance the offensive line, get some more skill, firepower, so that he's set up in the best situation to succeed. And so far, Josh has done a great job. He's really done an outstanding job protecting the football. UCF's been able to force some turnovers through the first couple of weeks of the season. Honestly, I can't really think of many throws that have even been risky at this point. Now, they've done a lot of quick game stuff, a ton of that, bubble screen stuff on the outside and the boundary, and then a lot of curl routes, button hooks, things where it's really easy for him to make those reads. Also, those RPOs. So that's going to be another key this week. Can you continue to be successful in the quick passing game, which is really just another extension of the run game? Is Cam Cook able to be more consistent, and in general, just the run game, be more consistent this week? Can you move this UCF front seven off the ball and create some running lanes? Because one thing about this ball game, especially now with the new clock rules where the clock doesn't stop on first downs, you can find yourself in a situation against a team like this that wants to run the football where your possessions are just really limited. And so I think offensively, they've been really solid for stretches of the game, but they haven't put together 4 quarters of football yet. And what you can't do this week is you can't find yourself with a lull in the second quarter, or 3 or 4 drives in a row where you're going 3 and out. Because if you do, you might not get the football for a long time. And you don't want to allow UCF to start stacking up points, and then you're playing catch-up mode all night against a team that wants to run the football and control the clock and makes that, part of their identity. So big test for the offense. Just be consistent and play more complementary football. But I think these teams are really similar. They're both very talented. They both do things super well. TCU has lived in the passing game for the first 2 weeks of the season, and they've done great moving the ball through the air. UCF has worked, on their run game, and they're averaging almost 300 yards. They're the top rushing offense in the country from a numbers perspective. I think that's skewed a little bit based on the competition. I think TCU's numbers are skewed a little bit based on the competition. So the good news is we're going to find out this week who can really hang their hat on those things moving forward and who can be a factor in the Big 12. There's talent, size, and speed all over the football field. And I feel like whoever wins this ball game is going to come out and be a contender for the rest of the season in this conference. Of course, barring injuries and health and everything that comes with that. It's a long year, but I do think this is a big-time measuring stick early in the season for both these squads. It'll be fun to see how it plays out defensively. TCU breaking in a new scheme, their first real test of the Andy Avalos era. How does he try to stop that Gus Malzahn offense? That's going to be a huge question this week. And I really do think, Sonny made an effort to beef up this coaching staff, have more support. Well, these are the types of games where you find out how much that moves the needle against a guy like Gus, who schemes some really complicated things and constantly puts defenders in conflict. Can you find ways to get your guys in the right place so that it's up to them, to make the plays and make the tackles? We'll see on Saturday night. When we come back, some more notes from Sonny Dykes' press conference. This is Locked On Horned Frogs, your team. We do it here every day. All right, I've been talking to you about it here for a few days now, but Ultimate GM, or Ultimate College Football Head Coach, if you're looking for a new game on your phone, a new way to spend time, to waste time, have you ever thought, man, I'd love to see what it's like to build my own college football program? I'm sure you have, because you listen to this podcast, you're into college football. You can do that. You can build this program, as Jerry Jones said long ago, from the jocks to the socks. You can be involved in everything: facilities, fundraising, recruiting. Everything is there for you. Ultimate College Football Head Coach. You can download it in the Google Play Store. You can download it in the App Store. Do it today. It's free. If you use the promo code LOCKEDONCFB, you can get a free boost that will help your gameplay. Ultimate College Football Head Coach. Again, it's in the App Store or Google Play. Download it today. Another one of our great sponsors is Gametime. This game this week is sold out. Sonny Dykes said that in his press conference yesterday. So if you're like, oh no, I don't have tickets, what am I going to do? Download the Gametime app today. And you can get those tickets on the secondary market. They'll give you a great view of what your seat's going to look, or what your view from your seat's going to look like when you sit down. There's no hidden fees. Listen, there's some fees, but they're going to tell you exactly what they are up front so that you don't get to check out and you're suddenly, got sticker shock because it's $20 or $30 more expensive than you thought. Download the Gametime app today. Get tickets for that TCU UCF game. Should be fun. We appreciate them and Ultimate College Football Head Coach for being proud sponsors of the Locked On Network. Okay, so Sonny Dykes' press conference on Tuesday. Things of note. I talked about Paul Olawale coming back. Hasn't played yet this season. Was supposed to be a big factor for TCU at defensive end. So he practiced on Tuesday. They're optimistic he's going to play on Saturday. I would imagine he's going to be on some sort of pitch count. I don't think he's going to play the majority of the snaps, but he'll have, a decent number, and his presence will be helpful both in the pass rush game and just the ability to also stop the run. But TCU's had a really nice start to the season, especially with those stud linebackers. Cooper McDonald, Devin Deal, Marcel Brooks was super impactful in that Stanford game, not as much against LIU. Those defensive ends and D tackles, if they can start getting to the quarterback too, not really necessarily their first job, but if they can, then that's a huge plus. So Paul being healthy will be a significant boost for this TCU team going into a game against a good offense that UCF has. Cam Smith, safety. They said they'd figure out more about him as the week goes on. So we'll see what happens there. If he's not available, then I think we'll see a lot of the same rotation that we have. Bud Clark should be back from illness. Richard Toney Jr. got a good amount of snaps with Bud out last week. Jamal Johnson's been really solid for them so far. So not super worried about where they end up defensively at that spot. But Cam Smith, the Memphis transfer, who did some nice things in the spring and in fall camp, and was kind of slated as a guy that could be one of those dudes this year. He could be available this week, but they're going to have to see as the week progresses where he's at. And then same with Dalen Wright, still trying to figure out what his status is. I hate to be this way. I think TCU's has good receivers. If Dalen's available, that's great. I feel like he can help this team, but I don't know what the injury is. It's just odd that he hasn't been on the field yet because he was projected as a starter going into week one. And the explanations, Sonny gives is just that he's been banged up, right? So we'll see what his status is. But Eric McAllister got more look last Saturday, got a couple of receptions, was able to get involved in the offense a little bit more. Savion Williams has been a huge piece, and I would expect him to really get more targets and opportunities to have the ball in his hands as we get closer to these bigger games. Obviously, J.P. Richardson and Jack Besh, same story, right? Like, have been really involved so far, and you would think that they would get more chances and more opportunities as we get in conference play in these bigger games that are coming up. But we'll see how they kind of move things around this week. I wouldn't count on Dalen Wright being out there for a lot of snaps, and then Cam Smith. I think if they have him available, then that's great. But they've been pretty solid at that safety position so far. Okay, so since we have a little extra time here, let's go to our Big 12 whip around. We do this once a week. Just look at what else happened in the Big 12 conference. I touched on it briefly on Monday, just the craziness that's happened in the league so far, and that it really does look like it's wide open for the most part. BYU took down SMU 18-15 in Dallas on Friday night. Now, some fallout from that game that pertains to TCU. SMU had been switching quarterbacks between Preston Stone and Kevin Jennings, trying to find the right guy. Well, they announced this week that they're going to move forward with Jennings at QB. So Preston Stone, who was a starter pretty much all of last year, will not be the starter for SMU moving forward. Ponies have a bye week before they face TCU, but they don't look great right now. They suffer their first loss of the season, have that close call against Nevada, and then end up losing to BYU. And BYU looks pretty solid. I don't know how much of a factor they're going to be when conference play starts here, but they've had a nice start to the non-conference season. And defensively, it seems like Kalani Sitake's team is in a good place. So a nice win for them on the road, and SMU continues to struggle against Power 4 opponents. And that makes me laugh because they talk so much noise, man. I mean, like, if you didn't bring so much attention to yourself, it wouldn't be a big deal. But when you constantly talk about how you're going to run the Metroplex and you're going to run the state, eventually you're going to do all these things. They still haven't won a significant game, like as a program, other than those wins against TCU, which was with Sonny Dykes as head coach, who is now the head coach for the Horned Frogs. It's hard not to laugh at what's going on there. Utah beats Baylor 23-12. The big story from that game, Cam Rising got hurt. So he had, I think, a lacerated finger was the official diagnosis, had some fingers taped together, but he wasn't available. Utah got off to a huge start. That happened sometime in the first half, so he wasn't there for the second half, and that game really changed after that because Utah was dominating. But overall, Utes look good. They're very physical. Daquan Finn, the Baylor quarterback who came over from Toledo, looked really pedestrian in that ball game. And I saw Dave Aranda say today that he just felt like the entire team the moment was a little too big for them, is the way he put it. Like, they just weren't ready for that game and that moment. They couldn't find a way to turn it around. Oklahoma, they defeat Houston 16-12, but a much better Willie Fritz's squad. I think Willie Fritz is going to be good there. Houston, I feel like there's a ceiling how much they can do, but he did a great job at Tulane and his other stops, but especially at Tulane, of building a team that had a clear identity, was physical, and you saw that on display against Jackson Arnold and that OU offense finding a way to stay in that football game. We'll take a quick break here, and we'll finish up with some more Big 12 talk. It's Locked On Horned Frogs, your team. We do it here every day. Don't forget our friends at FanDuel. They have a great deal going on right now. If you bet just $5 on anything, if you're a new customer, this goes through September 22nd, so we're running out of time. You can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with a YouTube TV-based plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. If that's not enough, be sure to check out FanDuel's Profit Boost in the app and use it for double your winnings for all of Sunday, 9:15 moneyline bets. That'll be starting on Thursday the 12th. View your account page now to learn more about your boost. FanDuel.com or the FanDuel app. It's America's #1 sportsbook, official betting partner of the NFL. Make sure you take advantage of that deal to get a 3-month free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket now through September 22nd. Okay, so elsewhere in the Big 12 Conference over the weekend, a couple teams that had close calls. Oklahoma State, they defeat Arkansas in double overtime, 39-31. They held on. They found a way, man. I saw the Oklahoma State, Locked On Oklahoma State host was talking about this with Drake Toll. Listen, that's an impressive win for Oklahoma State. Arkansas is an SEC team. You beat them, that means something. I think they should have beaten them by more. He was saying he thinks Arkansas is like a top 3 or 4 team in the SEC. I don't see that. But Arkansas looked better, and they jumped out to like a 21-7 lead. Oklahoma State came back. They did what they had to do to get the victory. But it was a hard-fought double overtime ball game. And Arkansas's clock management at the end of regulation was horrible. But Pokes find a way to win. Ollie Gordon with another great performance. Kansas State defeats Tulane 34-27. Green Wave had the lead for a lot of that ball game, but K-State, they come out and do enough to get the victory. Illinois upsets Kansas 23-17. Jalen Daniels really struggled. One thing that I think got lost in the offseason, Andy Kornecki, the Kansas offensive coordinator, he went to Penn State. And so Jeff Grimes is their new play caller. And that's going to be a big change. Like, I think Kansas has talent. They play UNLV this week, which is a really good group of 5 team. So we'll see how they bounce back. But, yeah, that might be a tough adjustment for that offense. Arizona, they survived against Northern Arizona 22-10. They were trailing to halftime, but they found a way to pull away a little bit in the second half. Iowa State with a 20-19 win against Iowa in the Cy-Hawk game. That's a big win for them. They've struggled even when they've been good against the Hawkeyes, and they found a way to pull that out and get a victory. Cincinnati had a lead against Pittsburgh, but they end up blowing it. They lose 28-27. West Virginia over Albany, 49-14. They bounce back with a win over an FCS opponent after getting beat by Penn State in week 1. UCF destroys Sam Houston 45-14. Nebraska defeats Colorado 28-10. Colorado looked really bad up front, and that's kind of going to be the story of their season. If teams can put pressure on Shedeur and beat that offensive line, then they're going to have a good chance to win the ball game. Washington State defeats Texas Tech 37-16. Trouble in Lubbock. Now, I have seen people talking about like how North Texas has a chance to beat them this week. I don't think that's the case. But Joey McGuire on that squad, they do have issues, and they're going to have to figure it out quickly. And then maybe the most surprising team in the Big 12, Arizona State's 2-0. They beat Mississippi State 30-23. Mississippi State's in rebuild mode, but Kenny Dillingham has that team playing well. And they were picked to finish last in the league. They're kind of an afterthought in the preseason, but they've gotten off to a solid start. And we'll see, once conference play starts where they are, but they seem better than expected so far, at least early in the year here. This is Locked On Horned Frogs. We'll do it again tomorrow. It's your team. We do it here every day.